I wasn't just a pipe fitter. I was a firefighter. I was on what they call the rescue and assistance detail, where I was the number one OVA man, which is the first guy into the fire. And I was actually pretty good at it, so that's why I got that position. Not to brag, but and then I was also on the nuclear detection team. So if we ever got attacked with a nuclear bomb of some kind, and there were people outside on the ship and got exposed, they would come down to an area below deck, and I had a machine that, in fact, I still remember the number. It's called an ANPDR 56. I don't know why I still remember that, but I do. And anyway, I would go over them, kind of like a Geiger counter type of thing, and it would either react to contamination or it would not react to. And if they reacted to it, then they went to the showers and they got washed off, and then they get checked again. And we just, these were the drills that we went through, and then they would be released. But nobody. We would secure the ship. All the doors would be closed. They call them doors, but it's actually, I call them doors. It's been a long time since I've been in the Navy. They call them hatches. And we would go to a certain degree of security, and nobody went outside. And that was my nuclear detection. And then there was sheet metal I did. There was a small boat repair that I did, what they call an iron worker or a boiler technician I did, things like that. But I was mostly in the pipe shop. 99% of the time. That's where I fit the best, and that's what I was good at because I was a welder, and so they would always need a welder up there, and that's what I would do. I would make up a new pipe. Sometimes it would be 5 or 6 feet long. Sometimes it'd be 20 feet long, and it would have all kinds of bends in it. And these pipes came from ships that were either tied up alongside of us or out in the bay, where I was stationed in Naples, Italy, and they would the bigger ships would anchor out in the bay, and then they would bring them over, and they'd bring that and the pipe over, and they weren't trained either because they bring it over with the insulation still on it, and 90% of the time the insulation. In fact, more than 90%, because that's all they had back then. They didn't have another one that they replaced it with. So they would bring it over, and we would, in order to make a new one, we had to have the exact size and the turns of the pipe. Well, you couldn't tell that with the insulation on it, so we had to take the insulation off. And the easiest way we found out was just take a hammer and just bang on it, and it would fall off on the ground, and we would sweep it up later. But we would take that piece of pipe, and we put it in what's called a target, which was like a mold type of thing almost, where we would put angle iron on the side, it would tell you where the bends were, and so you could measure it up, and we'd make them a new one and tell them come get it, and they'd come get it, and that was it. And this was a regular occurrence. Nobody knew anything about asbestos. The result was that when I got out of school, they sent me to a ship home ported in Naples, Italy. I spent 2 years there, and I spent after we got done with our tour in Italy, we went to Norfolk, Virginia, and I spent 2 years there. So then after 4 years, from 1974, April 15th, 1974 to April 15th, 1978, I served. And in April of 78, I went back to my home in Portland, Oregon. The first time is I went to my primary doctor, and they did a chest X-ray, I guess it was, and they said they found something called like a boule or a fula or something like that. I don't remember what they called it. But it was a sign of asbestos. And he said it was in the upper right of my right lung. And I said, okay, well, I'm not noticing any changes so far. And then the second time when it got a little more serious is when April 3rd of 2023, I was diagnosed with leukemia. And so I went to the Mayo Clinic, and they did a bunch of, all my organs were shutting down, so they did a bunch of tests on me. You know, my heart, my lungs, my kidneys, my pancreas. I mean, all the tests that you can do, they did. And while they were doing my lungs, they found it also. And I've got a couple of reports back from that, 2 different times they did it, and both of them say the same exact thing: exposure to asbestos. The United States government, specifically the United States Navy, knew back in the 20s and 30s that this stuff was cancer-causing. They knew it was dangerous. Yet, for all those months and months and months of schooling, they didn't take the time like my union did. When I got out and I got into the union, I took a class about it because I was just finding out about it, actually. I knew nothing about asbestos before that. I mean, I went in to the Navy when I was 19, you know, and I never had a job that I was around asbestos that I knew about. But when I went into to the union, they had classes I could take, and I learned how to identify it. I learned how to abate it, although I really never did. The places I worked had a company that would come in, and they'd clear everybody out, and it's usually down. I worked on ships, and they would clear out everybody out of there, and then take this abatement team down, and they would remove the asbestos. They would put it in a bag. First they wet it down, then they put it in a bag, and then they wrap tape around the top of the bag, and then they put it in a second bag, and then they take it to a specific place because it was hazardous material. And so I learned a lot from the union training that I got. I just wish that since the Navy and the government knew about it way before I was even in the Navy, they chose not to train us. They chose not to inform us. And they chose to let us expose, you know, not only myself, but my shipmates that are around